All right. Well, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order for this regular meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee on this third Thursday of March, the 18th. Will the vice chair please call roll?
Sure. Sorry, now I lost my list.
Hi, Rondi.
Hello. Okay, Chair Joe Winia.
Here.
Vice Chair Rondi Cox here. Co-Secretary John Arnold. Co-Secretary Andrew Manley.
Here.
Member Ryan Conway.
Here.
Member Lily Kleinlein.
Here.
Member Lauren Cott. Member Nelson Schaefer.
Here.
Member Paul White.
Here.
And member Morning Wilder.
Here.
We have quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Rondi. So today's agenda was distributed on Tuesday, the 16th by email, and it's also shown in the screen share for convenience. Are there any objections to the agenda as shown and distributed? All right, hearing none, the agenda is adopted, and we'll begin the standard order of business with our first item, approving the meeting minutes, which the minutes for the February 18th meeting were distributed by email yesterday on Wednesday the 17th. And there was a question submitted by Morning Wilder via email regarding section 3B, if the South Walnut position had officially been eliminated or simply left vacant. Has that question been resolved?
I did reword the minutes, and I wanted to read it out loud and see if this sounds more appropriate. There have been some shifts in staffing due to resignations at the end of last year. A full-time position at the South Walnut facility will remain unfilled at this time due to staff restructuring and reorganization of duties.
All right.
Sounds accurate.
Okay.
Dom, does that sound better?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go back and look at the meeting to see how exactly I phrased it, but yeah, that in essence is the situation.
Okay.
All right. I will also note that I submitted a correction via email simply to rename section 6 from old business to unfinished business.
And that's been
And-
updated.
Okay, great. Are there any further corrections?
Why would you want to name it unfinished business as opposed to old business? Because sometimes the business gets finished, but different issues rise up within it. You put that as new business?
Exactly, yep. And that's just
Okay.
according to the Roberts Rules guides that I've read.
All right.
So if there are no further corrections, are there any objections to the minutes as read and corrected? All right, then the minutes are approved. And that will bring us on to our next item of business, which is reports from officers and the district. And we will begin with Tom McGlasson.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot to update you on. I guess for those that weren't at the board meeting or haven't heard, our office manager Shirley Smith resigned last month, and Connie Hudson applied for the position. Our current controller applied for the position, indicating she was looking forward to retiring, but not yet ready to be done working, but wanted some little less stress, a little less responsibility. So, she did interview and was offered and did accept that position. So we are now trying to fill the controller position, and that's been advertised. We're getting applicants for it, and the board has the controller reports to the board. So the board has to be the ones that offer that position. And at the board meeting, the board deferred to the executive committee to help vet employees. So that's where we are. I'll work with the executive committee to vet the qualified candidates, and hopefully in the near future, we can, probably would be done at an executive session, but we'll have a board meeting to offer that position to somebody. Otherwise, that's about all the new district news. Everything else is running pretty smoothly right now.
Great, thank you, Tom. Are there any questions? All right.
Tom, where does your job description find itself at for that position?
I mean, like, where would an interested candidate go to find the job description?
Yeah, right.
In the About page on our website, there's a section on employment information. The job is posted there with the job description. And some places, it's been advertised a number of places. In some places, their system allowed me to put all that up there. Others, it just refers to that portion of our web page to get the job description, but it's on our Facebook page. It's been advertised on Indeed, Indiana Career Connect, LinkedIn, and one other that I can't recall right now.
Are the people that are applying, do they look to be fairly capable?
Some.
Okay.
We certainly have received interest resumes from people that are qualified for the position.
All right.
Are there any other questions? If not, I will proceed to the chair report. And I will start by mentioning that there's been a lot of content added to the collective file share space on Dropbox, and that it is primarily in the form of notes files from each subcommittee meeting and working document files also for each subcommittee, and that's what hosts the ongoing discussions that we're having for each of the topics. The third file that is of interest is the subcommittee scheduling file, which lays out the timeline for the whole 5-year plan recommendation process that we're doing. And I recommend that if anyone hasn't taken a look at that yet, that they do take a look just to have an idea of when things are taking place. And everyone does have access to those files in Dropbox, and your review and contribution through the comments function is welcome as we move towards defining these recommendations for the district. And if anyone has any questions about Dropbox or any of the previously mentioned items, don't hesitate to ask following this report or reaching me by email.
Where do you find Dropbox? I'm not familiar with it.
Sure. Let me finish up the report here, and then I will field questions on those.
All right.
Thank you. So then the next item is a relay of information from the board. The board is considering a joint meeting with the CAC for discussion on the 5-year management plan subject, targeting the end of April with no solid dates provided yet, but they are interested in collaborating somewhere near the end of the subcommittee meeting phase and the early drafting phase of the document, so that they can be sure that things are according to what they're interested in seeing, and then also provide their insights as well. And then I also wanted to share that Mayor Hamilton in particular expressed appreciation for the inclusion and collaboration of the city directors who have joined us in subcommittee meetings. And in general, at the end of the meeting, the board expressed a lot of gratitude and satisfaction with the work being done by the CAC on the plan. And I wanted to make sure that everyone heard that. And if you're interested, the board meeting was held on the 11th, and the video is available on the CATS TV website. And it's around minute mark 25 minutes, 35 seconds, where the board talks about their thoughts on the management plan. And then it's in probably the last 5 minutes where they make their remarks of gratitude. And similarly, I wanted to note that the board's previous remarks that were made about their interests in the scope of the management plan from the February meeting are also available via video on CATS, and that section starts around minute 15 and 20 seconds, which if anybody has the opportunity to review, might appreciate knowing. So those are the 2 points I have, and so I will open it up to questions. And Paul, your question, if I may jump right to it, was for accessing Dropbox, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, I've never heard of Dropbox until I was reading all through this, and so I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Essentially, there should have been an invitation provided when Tom had added your email address to the account. So in the email account that you have on file, you should have a welcome email from Dropbox, and then that will contain a link to this folder that will take you right to the Dropbox website, which is generally dropbox.com. But to be able to access these specific files, you'll want to reference that link that you received in the email. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Paul,
Yeah.
if you can't find that, I can resend that to you. So
All right. Okay.
let me know.
It may be something that I overlooked, and in getting clearing up a bunch of clutter, I may have just gotten rid of it, not knowing what it was. So
And some, depending on how your account email is set up, sometimes they do get dumped in a spam or a junk mailbox.
yeah, I'll
People miss them that way.
go through those. Yeah, I'll go through those and see if I can find it.
Okay. If you have trouble, let me know. I can get it resent.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions on the report?
Joe, if I could ask, just so that I can make sure that I've got the county IT and the county calendar current, if you could email me the dates of the upcoming subcommittee meetings that have been scheduled. I know they come in one by one and I see them and I try to forward them on just to make sure I haven't missed anything.
Absolutely.
And we get tech services and the county calendar current.
Yep, I'm noting that down now. All right. If there are no further questions, we can proceed to reports of special committees. And I will begin that one with the Education Committee meeting or subcommittee meeting, which we'll do this in chronological order. That took place first of the 3 on March 1st. And it was attended by Elisa Pokral, the District Community Outreach Coordinator. And in that meeting, I'll just give you a quick summary. Members agreed to target the 4 categories of education specified in the 92 plan, which are the K through 12, higher education, residential, and business groups. And then Ms. Pokral gave a summary of the current district educational services provided, and just noted a few highlights that the K through 12 programs have been popular and effective, that residential outreach has been difficult but would be very valuable to grow, that funding for transportation to the recycling facilities would help facilitate field trips. And that was all for her notes. And then collectively, the members agreed to incorporate a 5th category of policy makers, as had been proposed by Maureen Wilder in a previous meeting. And that would be to give general information on waste streams and their impact and how the role of policy can affect those. Then Rondi asked about the use of volunteers and neighborhood associations for increasing outreach. I proposed a county-wide branded education campaign and wide use of QR codes to provide educational videos on waste recycling and composting best practices. And then Morning proposed additional district staff to support the educational objectives of the 5-year plan, and also suggested the use of move-in welcome packets for new residents. So that is the content of the education subcommittee meeting. Are there any questions? And if not, we can go on to the source reduction subcommittee meeting. Morning, do you have content that you'd be willing to cover for that?
I have some. I'm not able to access the notes that are shared in the Dropbox because they're Google documents. I don't have access to those, but I do have some other brief notes that I can share. And if anyone else was in that meeting and can expand on things that I go over too quickly, please add them in too. So I think we had talked about doing some kind of outreach via like memes or TikToks, hitting social media to just educate people about source reduction and things that they can do. I suggested devising tactics to address different audiences and specifying for each of those targets. We had talked about addressing businesses to align with their business interests, also to address source reduction kind of through a business lens. We talked about reduction being better than diversion, so trying to reduce waste at the source rather than, diverting it to recycling or compost or whatever. We had talked also about paid and unpaid interns, possibly for social media, for graphic design, for other things that might cost in labor for short-term projects, especially with IU and their talented students in design and things like that. We had talked a little bit about the fact that people have been using a lot of disposable items because of the pandemic, and trying to kind of turn the corner on those as hopefully the pandemic subsides. Now is the time to go back to reusable items. We had also talked about wanting to kind of give metrics, kind of giving our target values for what we want to see as far as, percentages or by volume or whatever numbers we want to measure source reduction.
All right, thank you. I don't have anything in particular to add to those notes. Ryan, if you feel there's anything to mention, feel free. All right. Are there any questions on that report? All right. Seeing none, we'll do the final subcommittee meeting report, which is on the waste diversion group. I believe Ryan will be handling that for us.
Can do. So as with the other sections, we did a little bit of resurrection of the 92 plan stuff that would still be applicable, just kind of penciling in things that we can kind of copy paste and just modify for the current situation, just because there's a lot of good language in there and it reiterates a lot of the ongoing programs that are working well. So just keeping all the stuff that is good is on the docket. Waste diversion is like the biggest section of the plan because it incorporates conventional recycling, organics recycling, and other types of like reuse. And so we talked about whether reuse fit better as a category under resource reduction. And so that might be a change we make, but that's under consideration. Of course, there's an education component to this section, as all others. Very recently, the Indiana Recycling Coalition has began trying to formulate a master recycler program, and they are soliciting input and donations, sponsorship for that currently. So it's in development, but that could definitely have some good educational impact on waste diversion. We talked about potentially expanding recycling drop-offs, maybe at grocery stores or places like county parks through things like towable multi-section recycling trailers that exist. We talked about maybe stimulating some kind of like, cheerful competition among businesses or restaurants to see who could reduce more or divert more. Addressing apartment complexes specifically and having plans specifically for those. And a neighborhood association roadshow that would touch on neighborhood associations and homeowners associations. And as far as goals and metrics, it became apparent that the readiest source for goals and metrics are great because we already have them in the form of the 2018 Kessler reports that have extensive data on our organics recycling and their recommendations, as well as the City of Bloomington's 2020 Climate Action Plan and the 2018 Sustainability Action Plan. Both of those include handy charts on the impact of different types of waste diversion strategies, and they list the city's goals in terms of what percentages of reduction they'd like to reach. So with the district as kind of an intergovernmental partnership, it seemed to make sense to take those goals and the Kessler goals, and then we have goals for all of our categories. So it looks like waste reduction is off to a good start here. Yeah, I think that touches on most of it. Oh, also we talked about establishing end user markets for compost as the resource itself, the end product, because as Kessler notes and as other cities note, when there's no end user market for the product, it can become non-viable to recycle it. And this is something that we've seen nationally in the recycling, traditional recycling commodities markets, just keeping that on board for organics as well. Let me see. Oh, we also talked about trying to find and increase the availability of data on diversion performance and also contamination. For example, like I found the other day an article in the Herald Times a year after City of Bloomington went to single stream, noting that there was, I think, like a 30-something% jump in the diversion rate. However, there was also immediately a spike in the contamination levels. And so different types of PSAs were being released and a sticker program for the bins were being released to start to get a handle on that, as well as the new routeware software that sanitation department in the city is implementing on their trucks. That's all I got.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Are there any questions on that report?
When you were talking about contaminants, are you thinking or possibly things like antifreeze plastics going into plastic recycle?
Yeah, that could be among them.
Yeah, I believe the term contaminants just applies to anything that isn't recyclable that's going into the recycling stream.
Okay.
Or recyclable items that weren't properly managed before recycling.
Okay, like washing out bottles and cans
Exactly.
and stuff like that. Okay. All
Or
right.
just bagging the recyclables. That's a big no-no.
And the
Doing what?
The bagging of recyclables, so enclosing them all
Oh.
in a plastic trash bag makes them essentially
Yeah.
non-recyclable.
Right, right.
And the article in the HT, or it might have been Indiana Public Media, is hilariously titled, "You Can't Recycle Diapers."
Both hilarious and tragic.
Well, actually, you can if you use cloth diapers and wash them.
There it is.
Agreed. All right, any additional questions on the waste diversion subcommittee meeting report? All right, that concludes the reports on special committees and brings us to our next business item. In the absence of special orders and without unfinished business, we can proceed to new business. And one item that I have added that I would like to address is the Adopt a Road cleanup that was mentioned in the February meeting. And I wanted to suggest sending out a doodle or a scheduling poll to try to arrange a meeting time, but also want to open this topic up to the floor to see if anyone has any particular ideas that they wanted to express.
Well, we have put off the Adopt Road cleanup for actually almost a year now. And seems to me that perhaps May might be a good time. We should be getting along with most of the spring rains being done and being able to get out there and get it cleaned up before summer hits where it's too hot.
Well, we'd actually had I was contacted by Mary Beth King from the district in charge of compliance, saying that there was a complaint filed explicitly for the stretch of road that we maintain. And essentially they permitted us to put off addressing it until essentially there was snow-free conditions. So I'm pretty confident that going forward, we are in a snow-free portion of the year and would like to start to establish, I guess, the soonest opportunity that we collectively have to do that cleanup, since it's already been cited and requested. Are there any motions to formalize this process?
I'd move to approve sending out a doodle poll to schedule and adopt a road cleanup.
I
Second.
will second that motion.
Excellent. So it is moved and seconded to send out a poll to begin the Adopt a Road cleanup process. And I will provide that poll. And I will also note that Mary Beth King had advised working on weekend mornings because it's a low traffic time, so increased safety for those doing the cleaning. Is there any opposition to scheduling or choosing the target scheduling times within those windows?
At least in my time with the CAC, it's always been on a Saturday morning. And that has always seemed to work pretty well. Not that we couldn't do it later in the day, but I think the idea was before it got too busy on the road and too warm potentially.
Noted. Thank you, Randy.
And usually we got going around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
All right. And if I may inquire, do you remember what the average total time was to complete the cleanup in terms of scheduling in blocks?
What, Rondi? I'm thinking hour and a half to 2 hours.
A little longer than that. We always scheduled it for 3 hours from 9 to 12. And there are times, I don't know that we ever necessarily finished early, so.
A lot of that's going to
It just kind of varied how much we had to pick up.
Yeah, it's going to vary too on the number of participants that you have. 10 people can go quicker than 5. So.
Also very true. Noted. Well, okay. The initial target time will be for 3 hours then, and then we will follow up, or I will follow up based on how attendance looks.
I'd like to note, coincidentally, I was driving along that stretch of road just a couple days ago, and someone or a group of people were cleaning up from Dillman Road towards May's greenhouse, and they had several bags of trash collected. So it would be good for us to get out there and sort of complement that stretch of road with a cleanup.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. All right. And is there any other new business?
I'd like to note something. I'm not sure that's been discussed before. Shazeen Atari is this professor at SPIA, and her class, I think it's Human Environment Behavior, is currently working on a survey trying to determine if the city of Bloomington businesses would be interested in a reusable takeout container program. They're surveying students and I think the community as a whole. There's flyers about it in the STEM building, but trying to determine
Am I alone in losing Andrew's
restaurants.
connection?
I didn't
Close
hear
up on us, Andrew.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. We lost you at City of Bloomington Reusable Container Program.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, they're trying to gauge how much community members would be willing to pay for a standardized reusable container that can be used at different restaurants around the community. So just a little bit of news regarding waste reduction in our community.
How do we support that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I love that idea as well and would like to support if possible. Andrew, do you happen to have any more information about, like, is there any more involvement possible?
I can, I had Shaz in undergrad. I can ask her if she would be willing to maybe come to our next meeting and discuss the findings. I imagine they'll be summarizing the project by that time since school will be nearly done. Otherwise, I can just see how we can support her as the CAC and let her know about our current project of the renewed waste management plan.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd be happy to have her input and also help outside of this venue too, if needed.
Sounds good. I'll reach out to her.
Excellent. Additional new business items. In the absence of any, I do want to note, with no obligation, that previous recommendations made during February's chair report were around the topics of potentially having a special waste subcommittee for the 5-year planning process. And a special waste being some of the difficult to dispose of things like tires, as an example. And then additionally, the board report process, if the CAC has any interest in being involved with the production or review of the monthly board report or not. So in the absence of any motions on those topics, that would bring us to the end of new business and through the end of our standard order of business and onto a public comment section, though I do not see any members of the public in attendance. So I will announce then that our next regular meeting is Thursday, April 15 at 5:15 p.m. via Zoom. And
Make sure you get your taxes done.
thank you for the reminder.
They're
And
extended until May, by the way.
if there is no objection, that brings us to the end of the meeting and we will adjourn. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you everyone for your participation.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great week.
Thank you. Take care.